I know what trending is better than anybody in the world. I've been trending my whole life. From the day I was born, I've been trending.
I like the good publicity and I like the bad publicity. It all plays.
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
22 days in a row or something on the cover of the tabloids. It's never been anything like that.
Hello viewers, you're watching India Today Global with me, Ishita Mitra, and in a few hours from now, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Now, a change in leadership in the US, and that too, such a change is likely to create impact around the world. So to put this story into perspective, we're now being joined by Dr. Professor Muqtedar Khan. He's a professor of international relations at the University of Delaware and also somebody who's been closely tracking all the developments related to Trump's inauguration. So thank you, Professor, for joining us here on India Today Global.
Thank you very much for having me, Ishita, and belated Happy New Year to all of your viewers.
Thank you so much, sir. So first of all, I want to ask you, Trump's inauguration, some events have already begun. We saw the rally, swearing in will take place in a few hours from now. But the event itself is going to be an introduction to Trump 2.0. So what's the mood in America right now? What's the message you think Trump is trying to send through this, mega event?
Well, first of all, I think he has received a disappointment in the sense that the weather is terrible.
He's had a bit of a cold start.
Yeah, so they're moving it in, and already the media has started criticizing because actually it was colder when Obama was sworn in.
Okay.
So it was colder when he was there, but yet people showed up. The criticism in the mainstream media is that Trump is worried that he may not get as many people as he wants to, so they are playing it safe by moving it in. But I don't think he needs to feel insecure because his win was quite comprehensive. He won the electoral college vote, he won the popular vote,
yes,
he won the House and the Senate, and he has the Supreme Court in his pocket. He controls every branch of the US government. So I think they're just playing it safe because the weather is bad. I'm looking outside, my car is completely snowed in right now. So because of that, he's moved in. But there have been many events. There is a huge event dinner where he's meeting with all the celebrities and all the foreign guests who have arrived from India. Mr. Ambani is here. And Mr. Ambani is also meeting in a separate meeting that J.D. Vance, the incoming vice president, is also hosting. So there are many, large and small special events that he is hosting. He's trying to do two things with this inauguration. One, he wants to celebrate his comeback victory, but he also wants to impress that this is not just a win for Donald Trump and his MAGA crowd, but this is also a win for center-right part of the rest of the world. So that is an important aspect. Something that Prime Minister Modi did in 2014 when he invited all the neighbors to come for his inauguration, if you remember, which was a break from tradition. So I think Donald Trump is taking a leaf from Modi's past and trying to emulate him.
All right, clearly that's the message that he seems to be going for. So tell me, sir, he's made it very clear that he's going to begin taking actions from day one. He's going to sign a lot of executive orders that are lined up for him. Some of them are focused on border control, some on education. So if you could just go ahead and, list the orders or the steps that he's going to take once he takes office.
So, that the American president can take steps which are valid for 6 months. So all the executive orders are valid only for 6 months.
Okay.
And he can keep renewing them. But the idea is that because it takes a while for things to get passed through the Congress, it has to be passed in the lower house, upper house, etc. It takes time for every bill to pass. So this measure exists. So if the president wants to do anything instantaneously, they go to executive orders.
Okay.
So he's going to sign this 100 executive orders on day one. But think of that as one action of his, not as 100 actions.
Okay.
Because the main thing that is going to start on Tuesday is his attempt to fulfill his promise of mass deportation.
Yeah.
And apparently Chicago is the city where they are targeted already. A lot of ICE agents, the people who are customs and border patrol people, are already flying in hundreds of numbers to Chicago, where they are going to do. The people coming into the administration are denying it. They're saying, no, we're going to do it all over the country. But I have a feeling that he's He wants to show that I'm trying to fulfill my promises. The key question is, will he immediately impose across the board tariffs or not?
Yeah.
And that is the key question. And then there are other small things that he's going to do about, eliminating diversity and equity in the Department of Defense, getting rid of certain affirmative action related issues, getting rid of certain cultural aspects. All of that are simpler. But the key question is, will he impose the sanctions or the tariffs that he promised?
So, sir, you have been talking about his economic policy. Of course, he's threatened to impose tariffs on Canada, Mexico, India, as well as China. And he's also threatened BRICS countries. So, how do you think his economic policy is going to be different in this term compared to his previous term?
The policies are not going to change significantly. The biggest change that I see is the shift from geopolitics to geoeconomics. So, for example, under Joe Biden, America was obsessed with geopolitical domination of Europe, the Middle East. And so economic factors did not play a role. I mean, Biden probably spent close to $500 billion defending Ukraine. Trump is not going to do things like that. The thing that bothers Donald Trump is that he feels that America has not progressed as much as other countries have progressed. So when he comes back to the US from Dubai or Singapore, he's stunned at how terrible the JFK airport looks in New York, whereas Singapore and Dubai airports look so much more developed. So he feels that America has wasted a lot of resources investing in other countries than at home. That's why he wants to bring it back to America. So because it's not just economic, like he's interested in expanding and taking over Greenland, for example, or taking over the Panama Canal. These are also expansionist geopolitical ideas, but which are all designed to increase American power and make America more secure. So those are the things that are going to guide him. But overall, what you can expect from Donald Trump is less real wars, like Joe Biden started 2 wars and continue to sustain them for more than a year each. But you can expect a lot of economic tensions from Donald Trump. So more trade wars than military wars are possible. But he's also a person who likes to make a deal. And I think the biggest opportunity that might occur is with China. Even though he has stacked his administration with China hawks, everybody who is coming into his foreign policy, whether the national security advisor or the secretary of
Marco
state,
Rubio, yes, exactly.
All of them are anti-China, anti-Iran, pro-Israel. This is the 3 qualities of all of them. And some of them are also very pro-India, like Michael Waltz, the national security advisor. But for Donald Trump, the key is China, and he sees China as a major challenge. So if you notice, the first person he really invited to the inauguration was Xi Jinping.
Yes.
And so a very senior delegation from China is coming.
The vice president,
so the perception is in the US that it is quite possible that instead of going after China, he might try to make a deal with China. And, go back to the idea before Donald Trump won, Trump 1.0, Obama had flirted with the idea of something called G2 condominium. So like you have G20, G7, and a G2 with just US and China coming together to have some kind of joint leadership of the world. So some of his advisors are thinking that maybe Trump might want to completely turn the table and create a new partnership with China. But the question is Xi Jinping ready for that? So all these threats of tariffs are more to bring people to the negotiation table rather than actually impose them. And you saw it work with Canada. Trudeau came running all the way to Mar-a-Lago within 2 days after Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on Canada. So I think this threat of tariffs is more important to Donald Trump than tariffs itself.
Sir, you mentioned Ukraine. Now, Trump has already said that he is going to end the Russia-Ukraine war as soon as he takes office. And this, of course, could include Ukraine making some concessions on its part. So how do you think his policy is going to be on the conflict going on?
So he basically wants the war to stop. He is not interested in sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. And he has made this point that all it has achieved is got more and more Ukrainian killed, more and more Russians killed, and there has been no change on the ground. So basically what he's going to threaten in private to Zelensky is that make peace, And basically, it is like line of actual control, like we have with Pakistan and China. They'll say that whatever the status quo is, we'll freeze the status quo.
Okay.
And Russia keeps the 15 to 18% of the land that it has already conquered. Nothing about Crimea. And so the war will stop. And already, if you notice, Starmer went to Ukraine and gave 100 years guarantee.
Yeah, they've signed an agreement.
Yeah, so those kind of guarantees will be given to Ukraine. But what it is going to do is it is immediately going to give Donald Trump an opportunity to pivot away from international problems. He doesn't want the international problems to consume him because his main agenda is a domestic agenda. My assertion, and I want people who are listening, the policymakers, to keep in mind that Donald Trump is going to be maximalist at home and minimalist abroad.
Okay.
He wants to spend minimum resources internationally and maximum resources at home. So everybody who demands US attention is going to irritate him, like the Middle East crisis. They forced Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire.
Yeah.
And apparently Steve Witkoff, his envoy, told Netanyahu that when Donald Trump said there will be hell to pay, everybody thought it was addressed to Hamas, but it also addresses you. I mean, that's exactly what Steve Witkoff apparently told Netanyahu, that Trump will be upset with you, end this thing. So he wants both the wars to end. But what is interesting is that one of the beneficiaries of US-Russia policy will be India. Because all these tensions that Biden started with imposing sanctions on tankers, etc., and also putting pressure on India to break up with Russia, that pressure will go away because Washington will not look at India-Russia relations with a jaundiced eye. For them, it will be okay because Washington is also going to be improving its relations with Moscow. So I think one beneficiary of the change towards Ukraine-Russia policy will be India. And I think the loser on that case will be Western Europe, especially Central Europe.
All right, sir. So you mentioned India now. So coming back home, how do you think Trump's policy is going to be with regards to India-US ties? And how is it going to be different from what Biden's approach was towards New Delhi?
Biden continued many of Donald Trump's foreign policy initiatives. There's very little change. The only difference really is with regards to Ukraine.
Yeah.
He continued with the Indo-Pacific. When Donald Trump came, he raised the Indo-Pacific from just a dialogue to the level of foreign ministers. And Biden, when he became president, he raised it to the level of heads of states. So Trump is going to continue, but there are a couple of things on which these two are going to differ. One, Trump is not going to be that worried about human rights or how Modi treats minorities or any bad reports coming about.
Also on the Khalistani issue,
Yes, he's not going to be that concerned about it. I don't know about the Khalistani issue. It depends on how much Khalistanis have given to his campaign. That is also an important thing. So he's not going to worry so much about values and democracy.
Yeah.
So what is going to happen because of that is that the China factor will become more predominant in how India-US relations progress.
Okay.
So to worry for India will be that if US-China relations become better under Trump, then he is going to need India less and less. So he's going to tolerate India less and less, and he will become more transactional and more aggressive. And so don't expect one-way stuff like America investing in India. He's going to demand reciprocity. And say,
he's already clarified that.
Yes. So those are the things that are going to happen. So all this assumption that certain people in India had, I've been telling on my show that please remember Donald Trump's campaign promise was America first. It was not India first or Modi first. Remember that. So he's actually going to act on that aspect. But the second thing is that under Biden administration, there were two elements which were driving India-US relations, besides the negativity. Keep that aside. One is the China factor. Both are trying to resist China, the Indo-Pacific strategy. Yeah. But the Biden administration also tried to make it very clear that regardless of China, there is merit in India-US relations on its own.
Yeah.
And that was the important factor of Biden. So technological sharing, joint, startup companies in the defense area, joint education.
Cooperation in space sector.
Yes. So he emphasized that the bilateral significance of India-US relations. I think that aspect might suffer under Donald Trump, because if he's going to be focused on China, then he's going to see whatever concessions he's going to make to India is going to be in context of China. But if there is no China factor, then the bilateral factor will become very transactional. How come you have a $50 billion trade surplus with me when you have trade surplus with all other top 9 trading partners of yours? That's the first question he would want to ask. And India is. So what happened in the first Trump 1.0 is when Trump reduced India's stature from being a developing country to developed country. So as a result of that, India was getting certain preferences in trading, which it lost, which helped Bangladesh a lot, because Bangladesh is still classified as an undeveloping country.
Yes.
Yeah. So Bangladesh exports to the US increased at the expense of India's exports because Trump changed the stature of India. So what India did in retaliation is India increased tariffs on many American goods that are being exported to India. And that is why Trump just picked up the Harley-Davidson issue and raised the issue. But India did increase tariffs on many products, agricultural, etc. So I think all of that might come into focus if Trump looks at it. But like I said, it is quite possible that nobody might look at it at all, and they're going to be so focused, because if he really moves ahead with mass deportations, Ishita, America is going to look like a horrible, horrible country on earth. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to send police forces, drag fathers out of their homes?
Because he said that he's going to use army as well in this deportation exercise.
And you think people are going to keep quiet? If somebody is trying to take my neighbor away, do you think I'm going to keep quiet about it? No, there are going to be lots of, I'm very worried that we might see lots of tension on the streets in America, which we usually don't see that much when this begins to happen. But India is going to have 2 challenges. One is on manufacturing, that India wants to become a substitute to China. That he's not going to do, because he's going to say, what? Why should India be the substitute to China? Why can't it be, the Midwest in the US? If you're going to move manufacturing from China, let's bring it back to the US. That is going to be Trump's first instinct. The second is he's not going to be as excited about transferring US military and advanced technology to India for India's goodwill, like at least the Biden administration was in principle willing to do, selling 414 engines, which actually have not happened yet. But at least the drones have been sold, the most advanced drones that the US possess. They sold those, the Predator drones to India. So I think that is the challenge for India, as to how do you continue to make sure that the flow of advanced technology from the US to India continues. And then, of course, this whole business of H-1B visas, student visas, etc. And that the cultural side of it, because we saw that the MAGA crowd is quite racist. And because of H-1B issues, it has increased anti-India racism, at least in the rhetoric on social media, right?
Definitely.
How will that impact on policy? We don't know.
All right. So you've mentioned how the ties between China and US would look like when India is a factor. But in isolation, how do you see China-US ties going forward under Trump 2.0? So
one thing that you must keep in mind is there are 2 characteristics that are going to be constantly facing, with Trump. One is uncertainty and the other is inconsistency. So he's going to be very whimsical in his foreign policy. He might institute a policy and in the evening he might change it, right? Because suddenly he hears an idea and he immediately wants to act on it. But he's also tempted. He has been, half of America has been very bad to him. They have made him a felon, 34 felonies against him, so much of attempt to discredit him. There is so much of moral criticism on a daily basis. So he's also going to be tempted by trying to win the Nobel Prize. And right now, people are saying that there are 3 chances for him to win, or he could win 3 Nobel Prizes. One for ending the Gaza war. Number 2 for
Biden already credited him for that.
Ending the Ukraine war. And the third would be to patch up relations with China. if he does that. If Nixon can go to China, why can't Trump go to Beijing? And remember, he tried to do that with North Korea, and it didn't work out that much. So it's going to be a bit unpredictable. But I can tell you for India specifically, with Biden administration, it was like facing medium pace bowling on a flat track. There's nothing the medium pacer can do that will bother you. But with Trump, it will be like batting on a spinning pitch with a leg spinner bowling at you. So you don't know, dusra aa raha hai, is going this way or that way. So it's going to be like batting against a really good leg spinner who is bowling a lot of googlies and dusras. So that is how it's going to be. You'll have to be constantly alert and constantly reacting and not taking anything for granted.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global and putting this story into perspective, summarizing what Trump 2.0 could look like for the world. Thank you so much. All right, stay tuned to India Today Global with me, Ishita Mitra, where we simplify geopolitics for you.